Hello everybody, what a year, and I'm going to now summarize everything that's happened. Also, a couple of interesting things I've never done before in this minor video. I'm going to talk about the State of the Union across Bitcoin. First about the State of the Union, then I'm going to go through our usual 8,000 different data points, 26 ratios, composite scores, composite percentiles to identify the new winner, and a new miner portfolio strategy, and what if Bitcoin miners could 15x over the coming bull run. It sounds crazy, but we'll do some math. I've also had to up all my price targets because my price target for CleanSpark was $12 for this bull run, and we just broke through that. So it's like sandbagging too much, perhaps. And what else would I do? Also, I'm going to talk about a pair trade I did. I actually did a swap between crypto and a Bitcoin miner. Which one? So let's jump in. And disclaimer, this is not financial advice. Thank you to TND Tesla and K8 and all the moderators in the chat. And Patreon's open too, according to this. It's a community of true alpha filled with data and without toxicity. Thank you, Pat. And thank you to the team that just inserted that last minute. I didn't even know. So let's talk about the first thing. Let's look at kind of year to date. What happened in 2023? It was the most incredible year, but let's look at some numbers here from Econometrics. 2023, it's not over yet. Nvidia up 235%. And in full disclosure, I own Nvidia. Bitcoin up 165%. I own Bitcoin. Tesla up 107%. I own Tesla. The rest I don't own or have never owned Berkshire Hathaway or gold or a TLT. Anyway, TLT sounds like a beverage, but it was a crazy good year for Bitcoin and even crazier for some alts. Let's look at some stats that I think are very interesting as well from our miner model. First of all, the Bitcoin market cap now is 855 billion. We are 145 billion away from being a $1 trillion asset once again, and that day is coming soon. Also, price 43,732, all-time high. Quick reminder, some people call it 69K, it's 68.6, and we are 57% away from the all-time high. And the current cycle low is 15,621. What a great time to buy. And we are up 87% from that cycle low, which is awesome. Anyway, let's talk about some more details too. Transaction fees. They are going through the roof. Not just in Ethereum and other places like Avalanche, but also on Bitcoin. This is the average transaction fee on Bitcoin 7-day moving average. It is now above $30. This is from the block. Thank you. And the date is as of yesterday. This is crazy high if you're transacting on Bitcoin, but crazy good if you're a Bitcoin miner because you get this. And that is awesome. So you get even more money than ever before. In fact, it was a recent study I shared about a week ago, and that was Bitcoin miners are making more money now than they did when Bitcoin was at its all-time high last time around. Think about that. In addition, let's look at some miner revenue per day. Miners are now making over $59 million per day, and that's shared across all the different miners. We'll break down some more miner numbers too. These are the mining companies that we'll analyze today. You know some of them. What's really interesting about this little chart is look how many are at or making new all-time 52-week highs. You've got Core Scientific, which bankrupt, CleanSpark, Marathon, Iris Energy, Bitfarms, DMG, ARGO, all at their 52-week high, which is stunning. Some like Mawson and Wolf have a bit of ways to go. But again, that's interesting to look at too. In addition, and if you like numbers, you're going to love this video. Nothing but pure numbers, because that's what we do here on the channel, and that's how you find alpha. I thought this was an interesting statistic that came into my mind today. If we look at the total market cap of Bitcoin, that $855 billion, nearly $1 trillion. And I was thinking, I'm going to analyze all of these miners here. What is their total market cap? Well, all the miners we look at today make up about $18.9 billion worth of market cap, or the market cap of Bitcoin is 45 times higher than the miners we're looking at. So miners are a very important part of this whole Bitcoin puzzle. And they're also very lucrative. We'll talk more about that in a minute too. Now, this is a startling headline that got me excited, and I got a little bit of FOMO. I have mining positions but this made me want to get more. And I normally never ever give in to FOMO, but I studied this and I took a number that is a fraction of it and then did my math and compared it to some other assets, and that's what caused me to do a big swap, which I share at the end of the show. But here, this is interesting. This is basically read it out. On average, for those of you who are driving in your car, on average, you can expect the Bitcoin miners to grow 6 times faster than Bitcoin, while Bitcoin makes its way to $100,000. Now, if the miners maintain the same relationship to Bitcoin, you'd expect them to grow on average 15 times, while Bitcoin goes from 41 to 100K. That's 6 times more than Bitcoin's growth over the same period. So I broke this down, these numbers, and came to a conclusion. Excuse me. This is interesting. So let's see. Bitcoin goes to 100,000. That's a 2.27x from where it is right now. So you take 43 and change, and then multiply by 2.27, you get 100,000. Now, they said 6 times faster. That means the miners could theoretically go 6 times 2.27, which is a 13.6x from where we are today. So that is, if you have a mining stock that's worth $10 today, according to history and according to detail, that could become a $136 stock. Remember, we're buying some of these miners for $1, for $2, and now they're 12, and they could still do another 13.6x. Again, this space is fascinating. But I took those numbers and I took just a third of them just to be conservative. So I took all my price targets for all the different miners and multiplied them by a third of this number. And I have new price targets, which I'll share with you as well, to give you a feel for upside for these different miners. And let's look at miner performance so far in 2023. Very interesting. From 1 year ago to today, Marathon wins up 700%. In number 2 position, Iris Energy and Bitfarms up exactly 603%. You cannot make this up. CIFR, 536%. And CleanSpark, 496%. And then after that, you've got RIOT and others. But I just wanted to cover the top ones. So it has been crazy. I mentioned 5 names? They're all up over 500 to 700% in a year. Well, Bitcoin went up 160%. The question is, do you want to be in miners? Yeah. Have they tapped out? Not according to this. And that's, again, that triggered a FOMO in me, and I'll tell you what it did in a minute too. So let's look at where we are with Bitcoin as well. This is the Bitcoin top and bottom indicator. We did dip back into that lime green during the biggest dip ever when it fell down to 41K, but now we're back in the yellow, which means we're back on fire. So dark blue is the killer buying opportunity. Light blue is the stacking time. Green, lime green, also a stacking time. Yellow now we're beginning to get a little bit hot, and then it becomes orange, and then we go into the red zone. We have about 30% to go on this metric, which again is a composite score of 20 different on-chain indicators, to say when we are bubblicious and time to pull the chain or hedge and get out. We are not too far away, but what's crazy is everything's happening so early. Everything is front-running everything, which is insane. We've got like Solana nearly at $100 again. Nearly hit it last night. I missed it by 40 cents. Bonkers. Anyway, hash rate is also up 16,000% in 5 years. This space is getting very competitive. If you've got a rig that's 3 years old or 4 years old, it's not going to be able to cut it unless you got free electricity and free staff. So it's going to be ultra competitive. I always say Bitcoin mining is a cutthroat business. In addition, look what happened too. Big change from last time I did this a month ago. This is now, I zoomed into it. The green arrow points to the positive piece, and above it is kind of a zoom in for the chart. But you can see the Bitcoin miners have moved to HODL mode, which means they are not selling. They are now HODLing Bitcoin, which means they've got all their rigs, they've issued all their stock or got all their debt to build up all the hash that they want. Now they just need to get the machines, plug them in, and start mining more and be ready to be very effective and efficient for that April 17th, April 19th, April 14th, 2024 date, whatever it's going to be, when we have and their benefits go away. But fortunately for the miners as well, as I mentioned, fees are really high. So that's going to help them a lot. but they are beginning to stack, which means the miners know the price is going to go up, especially with all the excitement about the spot ETF, which is apparently 99% sure from all the experts, a foregone conclusion. It's going to happen on or before the 10th of January of this year. Now, I got a new little graphic too, which I thought would be pretty cool. This is just to give you perspective. One of the things I noticed over the past couple of months was the big guys were kind of staying stagnant and the micro-cap miners were exploding. And there was also some changes with some other mergers and acquisitions as well. But according to this chart here, you can see the bubble represents the size of the market cap of the miners. And on the left axis is the percentage gainers since September 1st. And you can see the big winner since September 1st is Hut 8 Mining. They did a merger with another player. And then the biggest of all, you can see on the bottom right corner, is Marathon. They outperformed Riot, the second biggest player. CleanSpark is third. HUD is now fourth. Iris is now fifth. And then you got other players too, like CIFR and Bitfarms, focused around those two little tiny balls. They've been doing well, but the market cap's very small. ARGO, very small too. In fact, Hive has been around for a long time. It's being eclipsed by these small little players too. So a lot of change happening, and that little bubble chart gives you that nice perspective of where we are in terms of size and performance. And I'll keep this in the future too as well. And a big thank you to Solar Bitcoin. Appreciate you for coming. Now, let's go a little bit further. This is where I go into the what I call engine time. We look at, again, tons and tons of data, 8,000 data points fed by machines, and I create ratios and ratios and ratios to determine exactly, in a fair, objective manner, what is the best miner. And I do it two ways. At the very end, you'll see I'll do an equal weighting of all the different ratios and a score. And then I'll do my weighting of what I think is most important. And we'll see who wins. And one thing I can tell you is everything is much tighter than ever before. So the miners are getting better at being more competitive. But the other thing is no two miners are alike. Every single one is different. So let's jump in. And also, you're going to see arrows in all my charts. When it points down, it means lower is better. When it goes up, higher is better. But everything is relative, okay? Let's jump in. We'll go through this real fast. We'll look at insider sales first. Not a big one, but something that we do look at is Riot has the most insider sales, CIFR second, and Sphere Digital third. Marathon joined third with any. Again, not much. Sometimes people do have to sell stock to pay for the cost of living, etc. Many executives and companies don't have big salaries, so they have to sell their stock just to put kids in school and pay for food and stuff. So nothing too hectic here. So we'll move on from there. Next is price to sales ratio. The average for all the miners is 6.7. Winner is Mawson. Core Scientific still bankrupt, so those ratios don't really count. So anytime you see a ratio beside Core Scientific, ignore it. Sir Winston, thank you. Digihost third and Sphere fourth. You're already seeing huge variations in ratios between different miners. But don't worry, I'll show it all at the end. This is a visual of all the price to sales ratios. Again, the average is 6.7. I like to pick that average point because then you don't necessarily want to be with miners that are above that. But again, everything has exploded, and these price to sale ratios are through the roof compared to when I did this just a month ago, 2 months ago, because the miners also went through the roof too. Let's look at the current and future hash rate, very important. You can see the biggest one is Marathon, about 23 exahash. Core Scientific, 15. Thank you, Mr. Piper. Riot, third, 12.4. CleanSpark, fourth. Hut is now fifth. They got a truckload of hash from their merger. What I'm trying to do right now is analyze how modern that equipment is, and I have a funny suspicion it may not be that modern. Anyway, that is very important when it comes to effectiveness and efficiency. Also, the future hash rate, Marathon of big plans, but it's expected to go to 30, but it could go a lot higher to 50. Core Scientific staying flat, they're just trying to stay alive. And Riot, 12.4 up to 38, massive. And CleanSpark doubling from 10 to 20. So again, a lot of growth, and the key is to get these things plugged in the next 4 to 5 months, if at all possible. The world will be a very different place in April. Hashrate growth as well. The fastest growers, Riot number 1, CIFR number 2, CleanSpark number 3, Bitfarms number 4. Now sometimes these miners issue stock to pay for rigs, sometimes they issue debt. I think sometimes stock is better as long as they can issue stock, get the money, pay for the rigs, plug them in as quickly as possible. It's kind of like Michael Saylor selling stock to buy Bitcoin, and then the price of Bitcoin goes up. Everybody wins. Let's look at miner production as well. November, Biggest is Marathon 1100 Bitcoin, Core 954, third CleanSpark 666, and Riot fourth 552, CIFR fifth 433, and Bitfarms sixth 392, and then HUT 390, etc. Despite HUT having quite a bit of hash, they're not mining a lot of Bitcoin, which tells you maybe the rigs aren't that new. Let's look at liabilities. Very important. Liability ratio divided by market cap. You don't want this to be high. You want it to be low. And some of these players have no debt, like Riot, Bitfarms, CleanSpark, HUT. Really very insignificant debt. But you got other ones that have a lot, like Mawson, Core Scientific, Sphere Digital, ARGO. And Wolf is kind of at the cusp. I don't mind 30% debt. It's not too bad. When you get to 60%, it gets a bit scary, especially going into the very competitive market after April next year. Let's look at market cap per exahash. Again, the winner here, Mawson, 22K of market cap per exahash. That's super low. Core Scientific, again, the market cap is low because in bankruptcy, of course, they're not going to garner any value. Sphere third, ARGO fourth, DigiHost fifth. Again, you can see they're all over the place. The most expensive one, actually, per this is Riot, nearly $300,000 of market cap per exahash, and number 2 is 258, and number 3 is HUT, and number 4 is CleanSpark. There was a time when CleanSpark was extremely cheap in this ratio. Now it's gotten expensive because they're producing a lot of Bitcoin, and they're becoming recognized as like a top 3 player, and therefore they're getting institutional money, which is driving the stock price up. And that's why everything is different this time around. Let's look at Bitcoin production per month per hash. You can see your Mawson wins 0.089, DigiHost 0.07, CIFR third 0.069, and Hive fourth 0.066, CleanSpark fifth 0.066. You could call that a tie. And then the worst of all is Riot 0.045. Now Riot is getting dinged twice in a row. What's going to go on later? Let's see. And that's what makes this so complicated. When I'm doing a face-off between equities or cryptos, it's easy to do. Miners are the most complex things to analyze. I just want to share that right now. So hit the like if you appreciate all the work we've done behind the scenes. Now let's look at hey Mr. Weston, let's look at Bitcoin HODL bags versus HODL. As we saw, the Bitcoin miners are beginning to HODL more Bitcoin. They're not selling anymore. They're net retainers now. Biggest HODL bag, Bitcoin value held as a percentage of market cap goes to HUT. 23% of their market cap is now Bitcoin. DMG, 18.6%. Hive, 12%. Marathon, 10.18%. Marathon was much higher not too long ago, but they must have sold a bunch of Bitcoin over the last month or two. And then you've got Riot, Bit Digital, CleanSpark, and you have some names that actually don't have any Bitcoin at all. Wolf, Iris, Mawson. But this is the time, as Bitcoin appreciates in value, you can basically net off what they have. So if you imagine $1 billion miner and they got 300 million in Bitcoin, you really need to look at the market cap as being, 700 million or so, and use the ratios as a result of that. Next time around, I might do that. Let's look at miner production over hash. Again, Mawson, they are an efficient beast. I don't know how they do it, but their production over hash is 0.089. DigiHost number 2, and CIFR number 3. Hive 4, CleanSpark 5. Again, this is how effectively and efficiently they use their rigs, which is probably a function of how modern their rigs are and what their overhead looks like and everything else as well. I can see all the Canadians in the audience. Canadians love their miners, so thank you all for coming. IA upside ratio. Now this is new because I had to modify all my upside targets for the bull run. Like my CleanSpark target was $12. We just smashed through that. So what I did was I took the ratio from the analyst I saw before and took a third of it, multiplied that by my price targets, and I came up with this upside from the price today as we speak. So this is an important one for me. The winner of this one is CIFR. Nearly 300% upside. That means if the stock is, say, $10 today, it's going to $40, just so you know. Wolf, number 2, 282%. Bitfarms, number 3, 233%. DMG, number 4, 224%. And CleanSpark, number 5, 217%. And you got some names as well down the bottom. Based on my model, they are very overvalued, like HUT. Minus 38.7%. Core Scientific, minus 10%. I don't know what's going to happen to shareholders. Marathon, only 37% upside. So again, do your own calculations, create your own price prediction models, and plug them in and see how they stat rank. So we're now ready for the first summary of all that. And these are just some of the key ratios that I want you to bring your attention. I give you the data. You can create your own composite score however you want, but I do it my way. So first of all, this is the new IA Miner Heatmap. You want to see a lot of green across the lines. You don't want to see a lot of red. You're allowed a little bit of red, but you don't want a lot of red. And easy way to understand is green is good, red is bad. So, and you can see as well what's striking about this. Again, no two miners are alike. They are all measured exactly the same way, which is, it always stuns me. Now, a quick reminder too, this space is a moving target. One of these miners went up 35% today. 35% in one day. If I did it yesterday, the ratios would already be completely out of whack. So just bear this in mind. But it is super interesting. And these mining analyses have been able to identify winners early before the rest of the market picks up on them. And that's what we like to do. Now I'm in a situation with some positions where I have to debate, do I shed and move to another miner? Like swap between? We'll see. We'll talk more about that pair in a minute. Now, let's look at the new IA Composite Score for all the miners with equal weightings. All right. There are the positions and scores on the right-hand side. The winner is CleanSpark, but it's so close with RIOT right behind in second place and Bitfarms third and CIFR fourth. Super interesting. And you can see some of the other names as well where they get dinged. If you're wondering why some names, a lot of people, the most widely held miner is Marathon. I've never owned it, never liked it because it never did well in my analyses. Not hating on Marathon. It just, I believe there's more upside in other names. But sometimes the institutional money, when BlackRock comes in, they got a ton of money to throw at it. Or when things are part of an index fund, in a Russell index, they just need to be bought. And the bigger they get, the more they need to be bought as well. So crypto, thank you for coming. This is my composite score with the weightings. And you can see how the weightings adjust the actual overall equal weighting score. I think it's very important. So if you don't like the way I weight things, use the equal weighting. Or if you don't like someone, then just rip them out. But based on the loaded scores ranking, CleanSpark still wins. RIOT is still second. Bitfarms was second or third before. Let me check. Yeah, so even with the equal weightings of my loadings, it didn't actually change. This is the first time that didn't happen, actually. It's interesting. And CIFR is fourth. So that is the score right now, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I got a little twist before we go through the winners and losers. CleanSpark still the winner, but it's getting super, super close. Remember, RIOT got dinged in some areas, but it still does really well in other areas like efficiency. But they're pretty fairly valued. That's why it's second place in this analysis, but I don't own it. I do own Bitfarms. Bitfarms, I think, came second last time. And I have a position in Bitfarms. And in full disclosure, I added a new position. And this is the new one. It's called CIFR Mining. Last time I did this a month ago. And 2 months ago, CIFR came in second and third respectively. They've always been on my radar. I've been waiting for the time to jump in. And let me walk you through some learnings here. So first of all, now I own 3 miners: CleanSpark, Bitfarms, and CIFR. All right, we know they're all going to do well. They have a financial structure that they can weather the storm. They are effective. They are efficient. They are growing their hash. They can make it. Therefore, I wanted to get some CIFR. The thing that prevented me from buying it before was there's a company up in Canada. I think it's Bit Digital or something. They own a third of the stock, and they were threatening to dump it and sell it. And I was afraid to jump in and buy it if they were going to dump on the market. Anyway, as it turns out, it didn't really matter. But the other interesting thing about this position is I did something people would think is crazy. I'll get to that in a second. But let's look at the chart first for CIFR on ATR. Now, considering the last bull run and what it was an all-time high, and per this model, right now, you can see CIFR has been on a tear over the last couple of weeks, but it could potentially go up to $15.39, which is a combination of not only the new price target model, the multiplier. If Bitcoin gets to 100K, this is what CIFR could do. It could go a lot higher. We don't know. If Econometrics is right and everything could go 15x, wow, that would be a $45 stock, which would be, 900% from here, which would be insane. But I like to sandbag stuff more. even though sometimes I got to then up my prices because the market's gone so fast so early. I wasn't expecting that. In addition, what I did was I swapped last little piece of chunk of ETH that I had into CIFR. And you might think, why would you give up Ethereum into a Bitcoin miner? You crazy? Well, let's look at where we are. This is the chart of CIFR divided by ETH year to date. And CIFR has beaten ETH so far this year, up 231%. And I thought the combination of that with the potential 15x or cutting it in a fifth, this is 3x, will, for example, Ethereum go to, what would that be, $7,500? Or will CIFR beat it again like it did all year? I think the miner could beat it. That's why I needed to also get rid of Ethereum and increase my another miner position, which I've always wanted to buy, but I should have bought a month ago. I didn't, but that's okay. But at the same time, Ethereum did go up, which meant the buying power was more or less equivalent. But that's where we are right now. That's my decision behind it. Right, you know, the market is irrational. The market does not value these things the way I do. So who knows? Riot, Hive, HUT could smash all these other players. I don't know. But so far, it's worked for me using this. It may not happen instantaneously, but over time, the cream floats to the top. So that's the story for today, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you to everyone on Patreon as well. Makes all this brilliant research and everything else possible. And this is amazing. We've got 2,500 people watching. And I think at the beginning, a year ago, I did a mining video. There's probably 300 people in the audience. And now it's gone up a lot. So now people understand there's a lot of money to be made in alpha. And I'm going to share this one more time just to hammer it home. If Econometrics is right, and if this happens, I'm going to read it one more time because it gave me FOMO. I'll say it. On average, you can expect the Bitcoin miners to grow 6 times faster than Bitcoin, while Bitcoin makes its way to 100,000. It's pretty certain. Can you consider Bitcoin's at nearly 50,000 already? Is it going to double from here? Oh yeah, 100K in the bag. Didn't happen last time around, but everybody thinks it's a shoe-in right now. And if that happens, that's a 13.6x for miners, as Bitcoin does a 2.27x. So again, it might be hopium, it might be real. So far this year, though, everything I've done has been sandbagged and understated. Things have gone a lot higher, a lot faster, and we have not even gotten to the halving yet. So thank you all for coming. Happy Friday. See you tomorrow for the week in review. Thank you to the mods in the chat. Hit the like on the way out, and let's watch these miners. Oh, one last thing. Never own more than 10% in one Bitcoin proxy. That's dangerous. Okay, so remember that too. These miners are cutthroat business. They could blow up at any time. So thank you so much, everybody, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.